What if love wasn't meant to drain you, but to expand you? What if the reason you lose yourself in relationships is not love, but forgetting who you are? This is not about loving less. This is about loving consciously, without shrinking, without disappearing, and without losing yourself. Discover how to love without losing yourself.
Love is one of the most powerful forces shaping our lives, yet it is also one of the easiest places to lose who we are. Not because love is destructive, but because unhealed wounds, deep insecurities, and old emotional patterns distort the way we show up inside it. When we don't feel whole within ourselves, we seek belonging through sacrifice, validation through overgiving, and security through silence. This book is not about protecting yourself from love. It is about learning to love from a place of strength rather than fear, clarity rather than confusion, and wholeness rather than self-abandonment. It offers a path back to yourself, not away from connection but deeper into it. Because the truth is simple, the healthiest relationships are built between two people who know who they are, what they need, and where their boundaries lie. In these chapters, we explore how identity becomes blurred inside relationships, why self-worth dictates the way we love, and how emotional independence empowers deeper intimacy rather than restricting it. We uncover the childhood patterns that shape our adult love, the silent expectations we carry into partnerships, and the subtle ways we trade authenticity for acceptance. Most importantly, this book is an invitation to remember your voice, to reclaim your space, and to recognize that love is meant to expand you, not erase you. As you read, you will not just understand love differently, you will begin to understand yourself differently. You will see the spaces where you shrink, the places where you overextend, and the wounds that lead you to confuse love with self-sacrifice. And with awareness comes transformation, because the greatest truth of all is this: you can love deeply and still belong fully to yourself. Chapter 1. The Foundations of Self-Identity in Relationships. Before love intertwines two lives, each person arrives with a private world, shaped by experiences, wounds, values, desires, fears, and inner truths. This world is your self-identity, the quiet architecture of who you are when no one is watching. But the moment relationships enter the picture, this identity is tested. Not because love demands sacrifice, but because closeness exposes the places where your sense of self is either strong or fragile. The foundation you stand on becomes the foundation the relationship must navigate. Self-identity in relationships begins with the awareness that you are not half of anything. You are a whole being meeting another whole being. The idea that love completes you is a romantic illusion that secretly weakens your boundaries. When you believe someone else makes you whole, you become willing to trade parts of yourself for closeness. You silence your needs to avoid conflict. You adjust your values to avoid abandonment. Slowly, you make the other person the center of gravity instead of your own inner alignment. What feels like devotion is often the beginning of self-erasure. Healthy love does not blur identity. It clarifies it. It gives you enough emotional space to understand who you are with someone and who you are aside from them. Without this awareness, relationships become mirrors that distort rather than reflect. You start seeing yourself through the lens of someone else's moods, preferences, expectations, and approval. Who you are becomes tied to how they respond to you. Their acceptance becomes your sense of worth. Their validation becomes your compass. And slowly, the boundaries that hold your identity together dissolve. The foundation of self-identity is strengthened by the ability to stay connected to your inner voice. This means noticing your emotions before you override them, honoring your needs before you suppress them, and speaking your truth even when your voice trembles. Self-identity is not built by being rigid or distant. It is built by being deeply honest with yourself. When you understand your own emotional patterns, your values, and your non-negotiables, you relate to others with clarity instead of fear. You stop negotiating away the parts of yourself that matter. Ultimately, a relationship is healthiest when it allows both people to remain rooted in themselves while growing together. Love becomes expansive, not consuming. You learn that true intimacy is not the merging of identities, but the meeting of two fully expressed souls. When your foundation is strong, love does not make you lose yourself. It gives you more of yourself. It becomes a place where you can be fully seen without disappearing, fully open without collapsing, and fully connected without sacrificing the person you came into the relationship as. Chapter 2. Recognizing the patterns of self-abandonment. Self-abandonment rarely begins with dramatic moments. It usually starts quietly, with small compromises that feel harmless at first. You silence a truth to keep the peace. You ignore a boundary because you don't want to seem difficult. You say yes even when your entire body whispers no. These small moments accumulate, and before you realize it, you've stepped out of alignment with yourself. Recognizing this pattern is not about blaming yourself. It's about finally seeing the subtle ways you walk away from your own needs in the name of love, acceptance, or belonging. One of the earliest signs of self-abandonment is when your emotional well-being becomes dependent on someone else's reactions. You start monitoring their tone, their mood, their approval, adjusting yourself so you won't disrupt the relationship. You learn to shrink your feelings so theirs can take up space. You stop expressing discomfort because you fear it will push them away. In those moments, you disconnect from your inner truth and attach yourself to their emotional landscape. The relationship becomes a place where you manage yourself rather than express yourself. Another common pattern is over-functioning, taking responsibility for the relationship's emotional health while expecting little in return. You become the fixer, the giver, the pleaser, the one who holds everything together. Beneath the appearance of strength is a deep fear, the fear that if you stop carrying the emotional load, the relationship will collapse. Over-functioning is one of the most disguised forms of self-abandonment because it looks like commitment, loyalty, and love. But in reality, it drains your energy and erodes your identity. Self-abandonment also appears in the form of emotional self-neglect. You avoid checking in with your own feelings because you're too busy managing the relationship. You numb discomfort with distraction. You ignore your intuition, the gentle warnings and truths rising inside you, because acknowledging them would demand change. When your inner world becomes a silent battlefield, you lose the ability to trust yourself. And without self-trust, you become vulnerable to cycles of overthinking, insecurity, and emotional dependency. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward freedom. It allows you to see that losing yourself is not an accident. It is the result of repeatedly placing someone else at the center of your emotional universe. Awareness breaks the unconscious cycle. Awareness returns you to yourself. It invites you to re-establish boundaries, reclaim your voice, and rebuild the connection with your inner world. When you recognize self-abandonment for what it is, you begin the journey toward a relationship where you stay whole, present, and deeply true to who you are. Chapter 3. Emotional fusion versus emotional autonomy. Emotional fusion happens when two people become so entangled that their feelings, identities, and sense of self begin to merge. At first, it can feel intoxicating, a deep closeness, a sense of unity, the illusion of perfect harmony. But beneath that closeness is a quiet erosion. Fusion blurs your emotional boundaries. You start absorbing their moods as if they were your own. You adjust your behavior to manage their reactions. You begin to believe that loving someone means thinking like them, feeling like them, and sacrificing parts of yourself to maintain the connection. What feels like love slowly becomes emotional enmeshment. In emotional fusion, conflict becomes frightening because disagreement feels like a threat to the relationship's survival. Instead of speaking your truth, you choose silence. Instead of expressing needs, you suppress them. Instead of standing firm in who you are, you mold yourself into what you think the other person wants. Over time, emotional fusion replaces authenticity with compliance, passion with anxiety, and intimacy with obligation. The relationship becomes a delicate balance of keeping the other person comfortable, even at the cost of your own comfort. Emotional autonomy, however, is the opposite. It is not emotional distance, it is emotional independence. It's the ability to stay grounded in your own feelings, beliefs, and values while still being deeply connected to another person. Autonomy means you can love someone without dissolving into them. You can care without sacrificing your center. You can empathize without absorbing their emotional chaos. In a relationship rooted in autonomy, two whole individuals choose each other, not because they fear being alone, but because they genuinely want to grow together. The shift from fusion to autonomy begins with awareness, noticing when you start losing yourself in someone else's emotional world. It requires the courage to feel discomfort, to sit with someone's disappointment, disapproval, or frustration without collapsing into their emotions. Autonomy emerges when you stop outsourcing your emotional stability and rebuild a sense of self anchored in clarity and inner strength. This doesn't create distance. It creates a healthier, more balanced connection where honesty can flourish. Ultimately, emotional autonomy is what allows love to mature. When two people maintain their individuality, love becomes spacious instead of suffocating. It becomes grounding rather than overwhelming. It becomes a shared journey instead of a shared identity. In that space of autonomy, relationships thrive, not through emotional dependency, but through mutual respect, presence, and truth. Chapter 4. Boundaries. The architecture of healthy love. Boundaries are often misunderstood as walls, barriers built to keep others out. In reality, boundaries are the architecture of healthy love. They define the space where your identity, values, emotions, and needs are honored, and they create a framework within which intimacy can safely flourish. Without boundaries, love risks becoming either a cage or a flood, either stifling individuality or overwhelming the self. The strength of a relationship is measured not by the amount of sacrifice you make, but by how clearly you can define and maintain your boundaries while still being present and connected. Healthy boundaries begin with self-awareness. You must first understand what matters to you, what feels comfortable, what drains you, and what energizes you. This requires introspection, checking in with your emotions, identifying your non-negotiables, and being honest about your limits. Their boundary is not arbitrary. It is an expression of self-respect. When you honor your limits, you teach others how to honor you. When you ignore them, you teach the opposite, that your needs are optional. Boundaries also protect emotional energy. Love is not sustainable when one person absorbs all the stress, disappointment, and imbalance of the other. Saying no or requesting space is not rejection, it is preservation. It is the recognition that you can show up more fully and generously when your own needs are acknowledged and met. By maintaining this architecture, relationships stop draining your vitality and start amplifying it, creating an environment where both partners can thrive without losing themselves. Communication is the backbone of boundary building. Boundaries are only effective when clearly expressed and consistently maintained. This means speaking your truth with compassion, clarity, and firmness. It means resisting the urge to over-explain or apologize for your limits. It also requires listening, truly hearing the boundaries of your partner and responding with respect. Healthy boundaries are reciprocal. They honor your needs while respecting theirs, creating a balanced dynamic where intimacy and individuality coexist. Ultimately, boundaries are not a restriction on love. They are a declaration of it. They signal that love is strongest when it respects the self, and that intimacy deepens when two individuals remain fully present to who they are. Boundaries create safety, clarity, and mutual understanding. They are the invisible scaffolding that supports lasting connection, allowing love to flourish without losing the very essence that makes each person whole. Chapter 5. The inner child's role in how you love. Within every adult lies the inner child, a part of you shaped by early experiences, joys, traumas, and unmet needs. This inner child carries the imprints of past wounds, and these imprints often unconsciously guide how you show up in relationships. Whether it's the fear of abandonment, the craving for validation, or the instinct to people-please, the inner child quietly scripts the way you give love, receive love, and interpret the actions of others. Understanding this influence is essential to loving without losing yourself. The inner child often seeks safety and reassurance in ways that may no longer serve your adult life. When unresolved, it can cause you to overcompensate in relationships, constantly bending to please, suppressing your true feelings, or clinging to partners who mirror old patterns of neglect or inconsistency. Conversely, it can manifest as defensiveness or withdrawal, pushing others away to avoid perceived threats of rejection. These responses are rarely conscious. They are learned survival strategies that once protected you, but now limit your ability to love fully and authentically. Healing the inner child begins with acknowledgement. It requires recognizing the voice of that younger self without judgment, listening to its fears, and comforting its unmet needs. Journaling, meditation, or reflective dialogue with yourself can create a safe space for this inner child to be heard. The goal is not to regress into childish behaviors, but to integrate those experiences, allowing compassion and awareness to transform past patterns into present strengths. By doing so, you stop unconsciously repeating cycles of self-abandonment or dependency in relationships. The inner child also holds the key to joy, spontaneity, and authentic connection. When honored and integrated, it allows you to love freely without fear, insecurity, or the constant need for external validation. You can set boundaries without guilt, express your desires without shame, and engage in intimacy without losing your center. Loving with awareness of your inner child creates a balance between vulnerability and self-respect, passion and clarity, closeness and autonomy. Ultimately, the inner child is both a guide and a guardian. It reveals the wounds that need healing and the strengths that can enrich your relationships. By embracing this part of yourself, you reclaim the ability to love fully while remaining whole. You transform old patterns of fear and dependency into conscious expressions of care, compassion, and presence. In doing so, love becomes not a place where you disappear, but a space where your truest self can shine alongside another. Chapter 6. Attachment Styles and the Fear of Loss. The way we connect with others is deeply influenced by our attachment style, a psychological blueprint formed during early relationships that shapes how we experience intimacy, trust, and security. These attachment patterns often dictate whether we cling too tightly, push away, or struggle to maintain a healthy balance between closeness and independence. Understanding your attachment style is crucial for learning to love without losing yourself, because it reveals the underlying fears and automatic behaviors that drive your relationships. For some, the fear of loss manifests as anxious attachment. This style often leads to overthinking, constant reassurance seeking, and a tendency to merge too deeply with a partner's emotions. Anxiously attached individuals may interpret minor slights or delays in communication as signals of rejection, fueling insecurity and self-doubt. While their desire to connect is genuine, it often comes at the cost of personal boundaries and emotional stability, creating a cycle of dependency and distress. Others may develop avoidant attachment, a style characterized by emotional withdrawal and fear of vulnerability. Those with avoidant tendencies prioritize independence to such an extent that intimacy becomes uncomfortable or threatening. They may resist closeness, suppress emotions, or create distance when a relationship feels too intense. While this protects them from perceived pain, it also limits the depth of connection, often leaving both partners feeling isolated or misunderstood. A secure attachment style, on the other hand, fosters healthy balance. Securely attached individuals can approach relationships with trust, emotional availability, and resilience. They can maintain their identity while connecting deeply, navigate conflict with composure, and support their partner without losing themselves. Developing secure attachment is often a process of awareness, self-reflection, and intentional growth. Learning to respond rather than react, communicate clearly, and honor both personal needs and the needs of the relationship. The fear of loss underpins most attachment behaviors. By recognizing the patterns it creates, you can choose conscious responses instead of being driven by instinctual fears. Awareness of attachment styles allows you to heal old wounds, strengthen emotional boundaries, and cultivate a love that is present, balanced, and resilient. When fear no longer dictates your behavior, relationships shift from survival-based connection to authentic partnership, where love is chosen freely, not demanded or feared. Chapter 7. Love without overextending, balancing effort and energy. Love is not measured by how much you sacrifice or how tirelessly you give. It is measured by the quality, authenticity, and presence you bring to your relationships. Overextending yourself in the name of love is one of the most common ways we lose touch with our own needs. It begins subtly, staying up late to accommodate someone else's schedule, ignoring your own emotions to avoid conflict, or constantly bending to meet expectations. Over time, these patterns drain your energy, erode your sense of self, and create imbalance in the very relationships you care about. Recognizing when you are overextending requires self-honesty and attunement to your inner signals. Your body, emotions, and mind often provide clear indicators: fatigue, resentment, irritability, or a persistent feeling of emptiness. These are not signs that love is failing. They are signals that boundaries are being compromised. Healthy love does not demand that you deplete yourself for another. It is rooted in equilibrium, where both giving and receiving flow naturally without sacrifice of your core energy. Balancing effort in love also requires clarity about your values and priorities. Know what is non-negotiable for your emotional, mental, and physical well-being, and honor those needs consistently. Learning to say no without guilt is an essential practice. Saying yes should feel aligned and intentional, not coerced or habitual. In this balance, you preserve your vitality while remaining fully capable of giving deeply, lovingly, and generously. Energy management is as important as emotional awareness. Love is not a limitless resource. It thrives when nurtured, replenished, and respected. Investing too much into one relationship while neglecting self-care, friendships, or personal growth creates imbalance that eventually leads to exhaustion or emotional burnout. By maintaining your own energy, you show up more fully and meaningfully, creating a stronger, healthier connection that is mutually sustaining. Ultimately, love without overextending is a practice of conscious alignment. It is choosing to give wholeheartedly while staying centered in yourself. It is honoring your limits without withdrawing your heart. By finding this equilibrium, relationships become a space of empowerment rather than depletion, a partnership where both individuals flourish and love remains vibrant, authentic, and enduring. Chapter 8. The Art of Speaking Your Truth. Speaking your truth is one of the most powerful yet challenging aspects of maintaining healthy relationships. It is the practice of expressing your thoughts, feelings, and needs with clarity, honesty, and respect, even when it feels uncomfortable. Many of us have been conditioned to suppress our truth to avoid conflict, please others, or maintain appearances. But silence or dishonesty erodes connection, breeds resentment, and diminishes self-respect. True love thrives in the space where honesty meets compassion. The art of speaking your truth begins with self-awareness. Before you can communicate authentically, you must understand what you feel, why you feel it, and what you need. This requires regular reflection, journaling, or mindful observation of your emotional patterns. When your intentions are clear, your words carry confidence and purpose, reducing the likelihood of miscommunication or emotional confusion. Courage is essential in this practice. Speaking your truth often requires vulnerability, the willingness to express opinions, boundaries, or desires that might not be universally accepted. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is a conscious act of self-respect and authenticity. It demonstrates that you value honesty over superficial peace, and that your presence in the relationship is not conditional on approval or avoidance of discomfort. Equally important is the tone and energy behind your words. Truth without empathy can feel like aggression, while gentle delivery without clarity can be dismissed. Effective communication balances firmness and compassion. You honor your perspective while remaining receptive to the other person's feelings. Active listening, validating their experiences, and choosing words thoughtfully all strengthen the impact of your message, creating a dialogue rather than a monologue. Mastering the art of speaking your truth transforms relationships. Misunderstandings decrease, trust deepens, and mutual respect grows. You no longer carry hidden resentment or silent compromise, and your partner learns to engage with the real you, not an approximation shaped by fear or people-pleasing. Speaking your truth is not just about words. It is a declaration that you value yourself, your relationships, and the possibility of authentic, lasting connection. Chapter 9. Self-worth and the standards you set for love. The foundation of healthy, enduring love is not built solely on attraction, chemistry, or shared experiences. It is built on self-worth. How you perceive yourself sets the tone for every relationship you enter. When your sense of value is strong, you naturally establish standards that honor your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. These standards act as a compass, guiding you toward relationships that nourish, support, and elevate you, and away from those that diminish or compromise your sense of self. Self-worth begins with recognition, understanding that you deserve love without sacrificing your identity. It means acknowledging your needs, feelings, and boundaries as valid and important. When you respect yourself, you create invisible yet unmistakable signals that others will respond to. People are more likely to treat you with the same care and respect you extend to yourself. Conversely, neglecting self-worth often leads to tolerance of mistreatment, over-accommodation, or settling for relationships that fail to reflect your true value. Setting standards for love is not about rigidity or control, it is about clarity and intentionality. Standards are the healthy expectations you establish for how you are treated, how conflict is resolved, and how intimacy is nurtured. They ensure that love remains a space of mutual respect rather than compromise at the expense of your identity. This includes emotional transparency, consistency, respect for boundaries, and shared values that align with your vision of life and connection. Self-worth also shapes the energy you bring into relationships. Confidence, authenticity, and groundedness attract partners who can meet you at your level. When you believe in your own value, you stop chasing approval or validation externally, allowing love to flow naturally. Relationships then become a collaboration of equals, where each person contributes to growth, joy, and fulfillment, rather than filling voids or compensating for insecurities. Ultimately, the love you receive is a reflection of the love you give yourself. By nurturing self-worth and setting thoughtful standards, you protect your energy, maintain your integrity, and invite relationships that enhance your life rather than diminish it. Strong self-worth empowers you to love boldly, freely, and wisely, without losing sight of who you are, what you deserve, or the life you aspire to build alongside another. Chapter 10. Respecting your own emotional space. Respecting your emotional space is one of the most vital practices for sustaining healthy relationships. Your emotions are a reflection of your inner world, and just as you would protect your physical environment, your emotional boundaries require conscious care. Allowing others to invade this space unchecked, through manipulation, criticism, or excessive demands, erodes your stability, diminishes your sense of self, and can lead to chronic stress or resentment. Protecting your emotional space is not selfish. It is an act of self-preservation and love. Creating emotional space begins with awareness. You must recognize what triggers overwhelm, discomfort, or depletion in your interactions. This could be certain topics, repeated behaviors, or patterns of communication that leave you feeling drained. Awareness allows you to set intentional boundaries, communicate your needs, and engage in relationships from a place of choice rather than reaction. It ensures that your emotional energy is not constantly dictated by others, but guided by your own inner compass. Healthy emotional boundaries require clear communication. Expressing your limits with honesty and compassion allows others to understand and respect your needs. This might mean taking time to process feelings before responding, requesting space when necessary, or gently asserting when behaviors feel invasive. When done respectfully, boundaries foster trust, reduce conflict, and invite mutual understanding. They teach others that your presence is a gift, not a resource to be taken for granted. Respecting your emotional space also involves self-care practices that replenish and ground you. Meditation, journaling, solitude, mindful breathing, or creative expression are tools that help you maintain clarity, process emotions, and center your energy. When your internal state is balanced, you show up in relationships with greater presence, empathy, and authenticity. Emotional self-respect ensures that giving love does not come at the cost of losing yourself. Ultimately, honoring your emotional space transforms the quality of your relationships. It empowers you to love deeply without being consumed, to engage fully without compromising, and to maintain your identity while sharing your heart. When you protect and respect your own emotional boundaries, love becomes a mutual exchange of care, understanding, and respect, where both individuals thrive and the connection flourishes in strength and harmony. Chapter 11. Loving from overflow, not emptiness. True love does not come from scarcity or need. It comes from abundance and wholeness within yourself. Loving from emptiness often leads to overgiving, codependence, or attaching your happiness to another person's approval. This form of love is reactive and conditional, driven by the fear of loss or the desire to fill a void inside. In contrast, when you love from a place of overflow, your heart is full, your boundaries are clear, and your connection becomes a conscious choice rather than a desperate need. To love from overflow, you must first cultivate inner fulfillment. This means prioritizing your emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being, and finding joy, peace, and meaning within yourself. Your self-care practices, personal growth, and moments of solitude become the foundation upon which your relationships can thrive. When your cup is full, the energy you share with others is generous, authentic, and sustainable, free from anxiety, resentment, or expectation. Loving from abundance also requires clarity about your intentions. You give because you genuinely want to, not because you feel obligated or fearful of being alone. You can offer kindness, attention, and support without losing your identity or compromising your values. This love is proactive rather than reactive. It enriches both your life and the lives of those around you, creating harmony instead of tension. Overflow love naturally attracts reciprocity. When you bring stability, confidence, and fullness to a relationship, it encourages your partner to do the same. It establishes a dynamic of mutual respect and balance, where both individuals contribute from a place of wholeness. The energy exchange becomes nourishing rather than depleting, fostering deeper intimacy, trust, and joy. Ultimately, loving from overflow transforms your approach to connection. It shifts the focus from needing love to sharing it, from survival to thriving, and from codependence to empowerment. By filling yourself first, you become a source of light, support, and inspiration, capable of giving fully without losing yourself, and creating relationships that are enriching, lasting, and truly transformative. Chapter 12. Staying yourself while growing together. One of the greatest challenges in any relationship is maintaining your individuality while evolving alongside another person. Growth often brings change, new perspectives, habits, and emotional patterns, and it can be easy to lose yourself in the process of merging with someone else. Staying yourself while growing together requires conscious effort, self-awareness, and mutual respect. It is not a rejection of intimacy, but a celebration of both connection and autonomy. To maintain your sense of self, you must first understand who you are, independent of your partner. This involves exploring your values, passions, dreams, and boundaries. When you have a clear vision of your identity, you are less likely to compromise your essence to please, accommodate, or avoid conflict. Self-knowledge allows you to engage in a relationship fully, offering your authentic self without fear of judgment or abandonment. Growth together requires communication and intentionality. Discuss your goals, aspirations, and emotional needs openly, and listen actively to your partners. Recognize that growth may take different forms and occur at different speeds for each individual. By respecting these differences, you create space for evolution without judgment or pressure, fostering a shared journey that honors both personal and relational development. Boundaries play a pivotal role in staying yourself while growing together. They allow you to protect your energy, maintain your routines, and prioritize self-care while being present for your partner. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that enable connection from a place of wholeness. They ensure that your individuality remains intact, even as your lives, dreams, and experiences intertwine. Ultimately, thriving together is a delicate balance of intimacy and independence. When both individuals nurture themselves while nurturing the relationship, love flourishes without smothering, and growth becomes a shared adventure rather than a source of tension. Staying yourself while growing together transforms relationships into dynamic, resilient partnerships, spaces where both hearts can expand, evolve, and co-create a life that honors love, authenticity, and mutual fulfillment. Conclusion. Loving without losing yourself is a journey of awareness, courage, and intentionality. It is a path that teaches you to honor your individuality while fully engaging in deep, meaningful connection. By reclaiming your voice, setting boundaries, nurturing self-worth, and loving from overflow, you cultivate relationships that elevate both you and your partner. These principles are not mere theories. They are practical tools to transform the way you connect, communicate, and create lasting intimacy. Every chapter of this journey reinforces one central truth. The quality of your love is a reflection of the quality of your relationship with yourself. When you prioritize your inner life, emotional health, and personal growth, you create a fertile ground for love to thrive naturally. You move from dependency and fear to freedom, authenticity, and mutual empowerment. Your relationships then become spaces of joy, trust, and shared evolution rather than compromise or loss of self. Remember, healthy love requires conscious practice. It asks you to stay present, speak your truth, maintain your standards, and protect your emotional space, all while opening your heart fully. Each step you take toward self-awareness and emotional integrity strengthens not just your relationship, but the core of who you are. Growth and intimacy are no longer opposing forces. They harmonize to create connection that is powerful, balanced, and enduring. As you close this chapter of learning, carry these principles into your life with intention. Apply them in your relationships, observe the transformation, and continue refining your ability to love without sacrificing your essence. True love is not about losing yourself in someone else. It is about expanding together while remaining wholly, beautifully, unapologetically you. If you found this guide transformative, take the next step. Subscribe to our channel for more deep insights on self-growth and conscious relationships. Like this video if it resonated with you, share it with someone who needs this guidance, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a life-changing lesson. Your journey toward empowered, authentic love starts here. Let's grow together.
If you found this guide transformative, take the next step. Subscribe to Summary Shelf for more deep insights.